All right. Well, it looks like we are ready to go. Hello and welcome, everyone. So glad that you could make it to our program tonight. My name is Meryl Fury. I am the president and CEO of Plant-Based Nutrition Movement, which is a Chicagoland-based nonprofit with the absolute joy and honor in our mission to spread the information that we have and we work with, we live about the value of whole food plant-based eating, just getting more fruits and vegetables in your diet and the magic that can work for health and wellness. It impacts our own health, it impacts the health of our communities, and actually impacts the health of the planet. So that's what we're all about. Tonight, we will be talking about reversing chronic illness, Desi style. We do have people in the on Facebook and on YouTube, and they're managing the chat. So if you have questions, please enter your questions, and we will get those answered for you, either by the people presenting or somebody in the on the chat will actually answer questions also. I want to introduce our host for this evening. Her name is Sharmila Bedam. She is a CPA tax accountant by profession and a passionate cook for whole food plant-based way of eating by choice. Due to her husband's diagnosis of a rare autoimmune disease which caused blindness in both his eyes, they switched flat out on a dime to whole food, plant-based, and no oil way of eating and lifestyle in 2016. In the last 5 years, she has gone on to thrive and recreate almost all of her traditional Indian dishes as whole food plant-based with zero oil added, which is amazing in anybody's book. I don't care what kind of food you cook. If you can take oil out, that's amazing. She's mastered that. Both her husband and herself are very passionate about leading this lifestyle and educating and helping others who want to switch and take on this same way of eating for their health or for other reasons. They also manage a private Facebook group, which we will get put up there so that you can see it. You can search it under Plant-Based Desi, where she shares creations and educational information about whole food plant-based lifestyle. She is certified in plant-based nutrition from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies, which is associated with eCornell. Thank you so much for being here, Sharmila. Mwah. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very, Meryl, for your kind introduction. Good evening, everybody. I'm so glad that you could make it to this evening's presentation. I'm sure all of us have at some point in our life blamed fate, genetics for all our chronic illness, health problems. Well, it's time to take control of your plates and what we put in our mouth. And to help us with that, we have two wonderful doctors, plant-based doctors, who also happen to be from the Indian community, who are going to be talking and presenting and guiding us and educating us why we need to switch to this whole food plant-based lifestyle that most of us who are on this PBNM group do follow and practice for a few years now. And without any further delay, let me introduce our first doctor, Dr. Soham Patel. And just a little bit of introduction. Dr. Patel is triple board certified in internal medicine, endocrinology, and lifestyle medicine. He has also been inducted as a fellow of American College of Endocrinology. Born and brought up in Western Indian state of Gujarat. By the way, Meryl, Gujarat is known for its food. And he's also the alum of BJ Medical College in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. He moved to the US thereafter and pursued residency in internal medicine at University of Tennessee Medical Center in Knoxville, and then fellowship in endocrinology at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Pursuing the quest to treat the whole person and not just a system, he got board certified in lifestyle medicine and now runs his lifestyle medicine focused endocrinology practice called Center for Preventive Endocrinology and Nutrition in Tampa, Florida. He walks the talk and encourages his family, friends, and patients to adopt a healthier lifestyle. He's been an invited speaker at different community events, health fairs, Veggie Fest, and different online event summits. He's trained in Indian classical music and in his free time likes to spend time with his family and his backyard plants. That's Dr. Patel's, the way you could contact him if he is if you're in Florida and you are looking for a plant-based, and lifestyle medicine doctor. And so you could reach him out there. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Patel and let's hear what he has to say.
Good evening. Thank you, Sharmila, for that gracious introduction. And I'm thankful for all in attendance to, spend their precious Friday evening hours to listen to us. I hope, it is informative. So the topic that I'm going to be focusing on, the theme of the session today is disease reversal, Desi style, because I'm going to try to modify or adapt that to, the Indian South Asian community, what things that may be, going on. But I'm going to be focusing on type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, PCOS, those aspects of things which primarily come from insulin resistance, and I'll explain what that means as I start my presentation. So here we go. Again, a disclaimer: this is for information and education only. This is not medical advice in any shape or form, and you should always consult your physician or healthcare provider to get your individual treatment and diagnosis. So I'm going to try to keep it a little fun. And so instead of having a kind of very monodidactic presentation, I'm going to go with the common myths that we see all the time and then explain further from each. Some of the most common things that we hear all the time about type 2 diabetes or prediabetes is, oh, I'm avoiding carbohydrates, I'm eating low carb, I'm doing everything I can, but my diabetes is still getting worse. Well, that is coming because over the last many decades, from many different avenues, public, guidelines and food industry and, many physicians, dietitians, who, by the way, are not taught nutrition. So whatever they are hearing is what, they are passing on. And for the dietitians also, the curriculum is slowly changing, but till now, for the most part, has just been focusing on portion control or calorie counting and not really looking at the key cause of what causes insulin resistance. So before I go further, insulin resistance in very simple terms means your body is producing insulin, but it is not working the way it should. And so your body needs to produce more insulin, but that still doesn't work. And eventually your sugar starts going up, and then you're told to be pre-diabetic or eventually diabetic based on how long that process is going on. Typically, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 years that you may be diagnosed with diabetes. But those 5 to 10 years are so precious because by the time you are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, you could have lost 50% of your beta cells. Those are the cells in your pancreas that make insulin. And so it's a very slow process. It takes a while before it starts giving you symptoms. So the key is to recognize this early on and take it head on so that you don't end up with the issues down the line. But going back to this common myth, so carbohydrates are not the cause of diabetes. I want everybody to understand that very well. It is the accumulation of fat in the cells that are not designed to accumulate fat or store fat. Only tissue in the body that is designed to store fat is the fat cells or the adipose tissue, as we call it in medical terms. Every other tissue or organ in the body is not designed to store fat. So when we start eating more fat and high protein meals and keep avoiding healthy fiber rich carbohydrates, we actually make the process of insulin resistance worse. The very first organ that gets all these deposits of excess fat is the liver. And the liver doesn't keep it to itself. It starts sending all that extra fat that it's getting its way to the muscle cells and the pancreas. And we start getting more and more tissues that do not respond to insulin like they should. Now, excess fat going to the pancreas also does more damage because, on one hand, the insulin that your pancreas is producing is not working like it should in the liver and the muscle cells. And on the second hand, because of buildup of fat in the beta cells lose or lower their ability to produce insulin. So we are getting a double whammy. One hand, we are not utilizing or we are able to process insulin like it should. And on the second hand, we are also losing ability to produce insulin. And that may sound like kind of very doom and gloom, but there is a way out to come out of this cycle. And the key is to focus on complex fiber and nutrient-rich whole plant foods. I focused on some key words there. Whole foods, because we are focusing on foods which have not been ultra processed. Because the more processed they are, they don't have much fiber, they have more additives and chemicals and things that we don't need. So wholesome foods which are not processed, and also they should be having a lot of fiber, because fiber is the key that allows our body to process that food in a very slow fashion. You have to chew that food, it breaks it down in the stomach further, down the intestine. Finally, when the glucose reaches the liver, it is a very, very slow process, and that limits how much glucose the liver ends up having to handle, and that can really help the liver function in a better manner. Also key is that you limit your total amount of calories coming from fat to below 15%. Because even if you're eating plant-based, but if you're eating a lot of oils or a lot of high-fat foods like avocado and coconut and nuts and seeds, you reach a point where your liver is still getting more fat, and that still promotes insulin resistance. So, like it says there, the quality of the carbohydrates is more important than the quantity. And as you see that plate is actually a plate that American College of Lifestyle Medicine has put out as one of the guidelines on nutrition. And half of that plate is filled with fruits and vegetables. A quarter is coming from complex sources of protein-rich foods. Now keep in mind, nature has protein, fat, carbohydrate, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and water. 7 different things in every food that nature provides from the ground up. Fat, protein, carbohydrate, everybody knows. Vitamins, minerals, water, and fiber. We need all 7. And nature provides it in the right ratio, provided we eat the right proportion of things. So half of the plate daily meal should be fruits and vegetables. 25% should be things like beans, lentils, and remaining should be whole grains. Going back again to the protein question, there is protein in every food that nature provides. So yes, beans and legumes have higher protein, but vegetables also are a good source of protein. Whole grains also have a good amount of protein. Even fruits have a little bit of protein. If you eat 1 cup of blueberries, it has 2 grams of protein. If you eat 1 mango, it has 2 grams of protein. So stop worrying about protein and start focusing on where are you getting your fiber from. Fiber, fiber, fiber. That's the question you want to ask, because that's what feeds your microbiome, and a healthy microbiome means better health. Again, you will see this in a little bigger view on the left side. On the right side of the screen, you can see there are numbers written for each color of different fruits and vegetables and how much deficiency we have if you look at US data. So anywhere from 69 to 83% people in US lack eating enough colors in their diet. So when you go grocery shopping every week,
Dr. Patel, just sorry to interrupt. Could you put up your slides? I don't think you've been sharing your slides.
sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Um,
You just have to hit the share screen.
I wish someone had stopped me early on. I mean, I almost spoke for quite a few minutes. I'm sorry, audience, they feel like,
No
boy, this
worries.
is...
No worries, no worries. Better later than never.
So if I need to share, now it's... Okay, I'll share screen. Now I need to go window. All right.
There we go. If you could, yes, put it on slide mode.
My apologies.
Perfect.
I feel horrible.
That's okay. That's okay.
So
Things happen.
this was the first slide, which I was talking about the most common myth: carbohydrates are not the cause of diabetes; it's the fat accumulation. And this is the plate again. As you can see, half of it is fruits and vegetables. The quarter of it is beans, lentils, and remaining are whole grains. And as you see on the right side, there's significant lack of different colors that people eat on a daily basis. So it's not like we have to get all those 5-6 colors in our diet every day, but in a week's worth of food pattern, you want to make sure you're getting different colors. So that's when you go shopping, you want to make sure you get some red, some blue and purple, some green, some yellow, some orange, some white, and easily you can get the rainbow. Another way to look at what to eat, what not to eat, is this traffic light system. So the green foods are the ones which are you can eat in abundance. You don't have to count or limit them at all. You eat till you're full. So all types of vegetables, leafy and non-leafy, starchy, beans and lentils, different fresh fruits, different whole grains, limiting gluten as much as possible. Now, gluten is not an issue by itself, but the way wheat has been grown in the last 60, 70 years and the way it has been hybridized, it is in a form that is not good for us. So limiting at least processed forms of wheat, maybe getting some farro or organic wheat berries, which are not processed or hybridized, would be a better way to get some wheat in your diet, but definitely avoiding processed wheat and looking at other grains like oats, brown rice, quinoa, barley, millets. Millets are very nutritious. It is a grain that is found in predominantly Indian subcontinent, and there are 5-6 different types of millets. So each type of millet carries different properties, and they could be very good part of your grain intake. Herbs and spices, which again, there are plenty spices in Indian cooking. Mushrooms are loaded with antioxidants, so you want to definitely make sure you're getting a good amount of mushrooms in your weekly meals. Nut seeds, avocado, coconuts, olives, sprouted breads or multigrain breads. Those are the yellow foods, meaning you can eat them, but you want to limit them because you can easily overdo it, and the amount of fat that you would add can easily start making your liver more insulin resistant and causing things down the line. And the foods that you want to really work on avoiding, which could be a process, but any type of processed foods or fried foods, processed grains, refined sugars, any types of animal foods like eggs, meat. The most common one for the Indian population, which may be quite, there is a cultural connection actually, is dairy. And I can tell you, I grew up eating lacto-vegetarian, and for good 20 plus years, my day started with a glass of milk, ended with a glass of milk. I had about 3 glasses of milk a day, and literally a pound of homemade yogurt every day. And that was my life for 20 plus years, and I struggled with constipation, dry skin, sinus infections every few months throughout my childhood, teenage, early adult life. And the last 7 years that I've been dairy free, I have not had a single bout of cold. My excess weight came off. My skin doesn't pill like it used to be before. This is my skin without any moisturizer, and this can stay the same even in winter months. Earlier, I had to lather it with lots of moisturizer 2-3 times a day, and constipation went away, energy went up. So dairy is a big part of Indian cooking, but it is not helping us. Our forefathers had dairy, but there was a very small portion of the total intake of foods, and the amount of labor that they did from morning till night was way higher than what we do now. And life was simple. People didn't stay up late night. There were no cell phones. Air was more fresh. The ground, the soil, everything was less polluted. So in today's context, to say, dairy, we keep eating that because that's what our forefathers did, is not necessarily true. And also the amount of dairy intake has gone through the roof. The amount of cheese that I see today's kids eating is phenomenal. I mean, nothing they eat is without cheese, and that's not how I grew up. I mean, I had cheese, but it was maybe once every couple of weeks, not every day. But it is the reality. Today's kids, especially in Indian families, are having a lot of cheese and processed foods. The second most common thing that I hear all the time, which again is not what the science shows, is, if you have diabetes, you should not be, and not even just diabetes, anybody for that matter, we do not need to be eating every 2-3 hours. We have the most phenomenal system that we call the human body, and the lesser we make it work, the longer and better it lasts. Because every time we eat food, our body has to release insulin. Now, insulin is necessary to process any type of food. Fat, protein, carbohydrate, doesn't matter. Insulin is required. But insulin is also a growth-promoting hormone, meaning it can promote growth of different tissues. It can cause uterine fibroids, cancers, skin tags, blackening of skin, which is very common sign of insulin resistance, and especially people in Indian ancestry get blackening on the side of their faces. That's a very early telltale sign of insulin resistance. So every time we expose ourselves to more insulin, the higher damage the body causes. Now, keep in mind, we need insulin. If we don't produce insulin, then we'll die in 30-40 minutes. It is that vital. But when we have access, it is not good as well. It starts interfering with other hormones like thyroid and sex hormones and all kinds of things. So you want to really limit how much insulin your body gets exposed to. And the way to do that is to actually limit the number of meals you eat in a day. Because you want to go from the eating phase, which we call the prandial phase, to the post-eating phase, which is called the postprandial phase, which is about 2 to 3 hours, depending on the type of meal. And then we want to go into fasting phase, where the body is not having to process or digest any food, that it can literally go back to cleaning, detoxification, and doing the things that the body needs to do to keep our system efficient before you eat the next meal. So we want to at least have 30 minutes or maybe an hour of fasting phase before we end up eating the next meal. And if you eat every 2-3 hours, you're never going to end up into fasting phase. You go from prandial to postprandial, prandial to postprandial, and that keeps going on throughout the day. And now, right before bedtime, you eat something else before going to bed. So now the nighttime, which was supposed to be your fasting phase, and the body was going to process things and detoxify and clean the liver, clean the blood, and all that process which should have been happening at night, all that gets put on the back burner, and now your body and your liver, intestine has to process the food that you just ate before going to bed. And you also don't get the good quality of sleep because your system is still running at a high energy state, so it is not going to slow down for your body to feel rested and get into the deep stages of sleep. So, and this has been shown in studies as well, head-to-head trial looking at 6 meals a day versus 3 well-balanced meals a day. The 3 well-balanced meals a day definitely did better metabolically than the 6 meals a day. But you will still keep hearing this over and over again. But I'm trying my best to make sure that is the second learning you go take home from my talk today is don't eat frequently. Eating a bigger breakfast, a decent sized lunch, and a smaller dinner is good metabolically. But again, if you have a long day, or we all at some point do some type of stress eating, so it may not possible to have a very small dinner. It's okay. The way I try to address that is you eat a decent breakfast. It's called breakfast because you're breaking the fast from the night before. So you want to eat a good fiber-rich meal like overnight oats or a big bowl of fruits with some, hemp seeds on top or some chia seeds on top. About 3-4 hours after that, you eat your lunch. 4 hours, 3-4 hours after that, you could have another serving of fruit. And it does 2 things. One, the fruit gets digested properly without it getting fermented after other food. And so it doesn't create toxins when it doesn't get fermented. And secondly, if you have it 30 minutes to an hour before your dinner time, it prevents you from overeating at dinner because you're already having some food in the stomach with the fruits, which lowers your hunger cravings, and you get some nice glucose to the brain so you don't feel as tired. And so then when you eat dinner, you are more conscious, you're able to focus and eat the right amount without stuffing yourself up because you're just stress eating and taking it out all on your dinner. And we'll talk about intermittent fasting in the next few minutes, but it kind of goes hand in hand to limit the time that your body exposes to insulin. The third most common thing, again, that diabetics especially get advised is, always eat your fruit with some form of cheese or peanut butter so you get a steady level of sugars. When you eat fruit by itself, keep in mind, I'm not talking about making it a smoothie, because when you turn it into a smoothie, that sugar processes very fast and hits the liver right away. So smoothie once in a while, it's okay, but smoothie on a daily basis is going to cause more insulin resistance, and it's also going to cause more weight gain because pack in more food that you would not ideally eat if you had to chew it down. But because it's a smoothie, you can gulp down a big shake and not realize how much you consume. So eating the fruit by itself is important because when you combine it with any high-fat foods like cheese or peanut butter or any nut butter for that matter, you are increasing the work that the liver has to do and making it harder to process the insulin. So the sugar has a bigger spike if you combine it with high-fat foods versus if you just eat the fruit and however pieces of fruit you want to eat. But eating the fruit by itself will be metabolized a lot better and will actually help you improve your sugars over time and get you off medication step by step. So focus on eating the fruit by itself. Don't mix it up or don't blend it up with too many other things because you want to get the benefit of the fiber in its intact form and let your mouth and abdomen, your stomach and intestine to do the job of processing it. And the last most common thing is, diabetics cannot do intermittent fasting. No, they can. The key factor is that you got to make sure you talk with your physician and have a plan of what medications you will avoid or you will reduce when you do your intermittent fasting, or if you want to go for a full 24-hour water fast, which is again possible, but you got to talk with your physician and have a plan to know, okay, if I'm taking metformin and I'm taking insulin when I fast, I'm going to skip my metformin. And if your sugars have been running high, you may want to still have some insulin on board, but again, that could go down very fast. So you need to be vigilant when you do water fast for 24 hours if you go that route. So that appropriately you're reducing your medications, but doing intermittent fasting is fairly easy. You may not even need that much of a medication change right away. If you keep doing it, yes, over time, sugars will improve and you will have to definitely adjust them down. The way I suggest, and you can modify it based on your schedule, is to eat in an 8-hour, 10-hour window and at least have 14 to 16 hours of no food overnight. But keep in mind, your feeding time should be matching with the sun. So you start eating a few hours after sunrise and you stop eating an hour or two before sundown. That's the best. You can modify it based on your schedule, but the key is that you are not eating after 8 p.m. You definitely want to have at least 2 hours of no food before you go to bed. So when you have food in that 8-10 hour window, you will be limiting how much insulin is needed. And again, as you eat foods which are naturally high in fiber, like fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains, you will be eating a lot more carbohydrates, but you'll be still needing less insulin. I have patients after patients who are eating a lot more, sometimes 300, 500, 600 grams of carbohydrates from fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains, but they are still needing less and less medication, and I'm able to get them off insulin and also eventually off their oral medications in many cases. So again, key is work with your physician, adjust the medications as you need to, but you can definitely do intermittent fasting where you don't eat for 14 to 16 hours every night. Now, like I talked about insulin resistance before, that is one process that can lead to many different issues. So we talked about type 2 diabetes and prediabetes earlier, but polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, or in India it's called PCOD, is a disease that affects so many women. And yes, most of the women may have excess weight, but there are also 20% of women with PCOS who are lean. They may have fat buildup around their abdominal organs like the liver and the intestine, and that is really what really matters, the visceral fat. But you don't have to be overtly fat to have PCOS. It is quite prevalent. 1 in every 5 women across the world, across all ethnicities, are suffering from PCOS, and the reasons are multifold. But food is a very, very big factor. There is plastic and BPA, pesticides, many other factors in the environment which also play a role why it is causing, affecting so many women. But food is something that is definitely in your control, and that if you can modify, can really do wonders. I have patients who have been having irregular menstrual cycles for months or years, and within just a couple, 3 months of going 100% whole food plant-based, relatively low in fat, they start getting normal menstrual cycles without needing any metformin or any other medications. And the response could vary. Someone may need 6 months of doing that before they start having cycles, but food is very beneficial and it's very powerful. So never ignore the power of food. Along with food, we also need to focus on our sleep habits and rest. Having maybe couple hours every week that you focus on self-care, that you maybe go out in some state park or some natural garden or some place where you can look at trees and nature and just be in tune with nature, listen to the birds chirping, enjoy the sunlight. But that actually allows you to ground, and it has multiple benefits of at least having a couple hours of nature therapy every week. And you can do a lot more if you want, but at least bare minimum couple hours every week. Making sure you're going to bed at a good time, going to bed after 10 p.m. as you keep going further, it's metabolically not good. And definitely after midnight, even if you sleep 7-8 hours after midnight, it is not the same quality as going to sleep before 11 p.m. So the quality of sleep matters more than the quantity of sleep, and the time that you go to sleep also is equally important. We have tremendous systems, or the sciences, actually, the yogic science and the science of meditation are so huge, systems that have significant benefits for the whole body, for the mind, for the heart, for your metabolic health, for your immune system. It's a complete system. I don't think I can do justice on it, but the reason I mention them is those are modalities which should be part of our daily routine in some form. And the most easiest way to start that is to just start with some moments of deep breathing every day. And you can do it a couple of minutes in the morning, couple of minutes in the middle of the day, definitely when you're driving back and forth from work, and then when you're trying to fall asleep at night. So there are times where we can add things without having to spare extra time and work on improving our health. You see that staycation, that workstation that you can adjust. So if you're sedentary at a work desk all the time, either getting up every hour or having an option of this type of mobile workstation where you can stand up and down and do things that you can put in your routine without having to go an arm and leg out of your way. Like I said, sleep hygiene is very important. And the biggest culprit that affects our sleep is our blue light exposure that we have in the evening hours. Because when we expose to blue light, our body thinks this is daytime. And so it lowers the melatonin release, which is such an important molecule for good sleep, but it is also a very important molecule for cancer prevention. Low melatonin levels have been shown to be connected to risk of breast cancer. So it is not just for good sleep, but also for good effects for rest of the body. And we really need to work on a routine. It's not like you're doing a million things, checking your emails and doing things and watching TV, and then the next minute you can fall asleep and expect to get good quality sleep. So you need to create a routine. It could be 15 minutes, it could be half an hour, it could be 2 hours, whatever works for you, but a routine which involves relaxing music, some journaling so that it can allow you to de-stress from the day's stresses, taking a warm shower which will mimic the effect of melatonin, and keeping all your blue light devices away, 10 feet away from you, and definitely no TV in your bedroom. Bedroom should only be for sleeping and getting intimate, nothing else. So no food, no TV, no reading in the bed. Everything should happen outside the bed, so that you're conditioning your brain to do the right thing. A quick few slides on supplements, because I think that's a very common question that comes through. We don't need a laundry list of supplements, okay? Yes, the quality of soil has gone down. Yes, there is a reduction in the amount of minerals in the soil, but still you don't need a laundry list of supplements. Eating foods that are locally grown, getting it through farmers market, knowing your farmers, those could be things that can get you cheap but good quality food, and you don't have to spend a lot of extra money to going to big supermarkets. So be creative, talk to find local sources in your community. But there are 3 supplements that I take myself, and I always recommend to my patients as well. B12 is non-negotiable, and not that it comes from plants or animals, it comes from microbes, and the quality of microbes in the soil has been diminished. Our microbiome has also been diminished because of the use of antibiotics very frequently that we get through the lifetime. So the only reliable way is to get a B12 supplement. There are quite a few different forms. The form that I've written up there, called methylcobalamin, is easily available. If you get 1,000 microgram quick dissolve tablet or a spray or a liquid, you do it every day. If it's 2,500, you do it 2 times a week, and get your levels checked. make sure you get your levels checked, and your B12 level should be between 600 to 1100. So don't just say a B12 is 300, it's normal, that's fine. It is not. It should be about 600 to 1100. D3 and K2, again, they work together very well, and it has synergistic effects on your brain function, on your heart disease prevention, on your immune system, on getting the vitamin D level up, and also not adding extra calcium in that. You need the calcium from the food, from the leafy greens, from the beans, from the fruits and the whole grains. But taking D3, 5,000 units with 100 micrograms of K2 with a bigger meal of the day, because it absorbs well with food. So don't take it empty stomach. You're not going to get the full benefit. But couple times a year, get your levels checked. And this should be across the year. It's more important even in winter, but even in summertime, I can tell you, even in the state of Florida, where we have so much sunshine, in the middle of summer, I still see patients who have low vitamin D in spite of spending time outdoors. So which, again, there's a whole big discussion. I'm not going to go into the reasons, but please make sure you take your vitamin D. It's also very important from the current last year and a half that we've gone through in terms of immune system. So vitamin D is very important, and it is also important for insulin signaling. If your vitamin D level stays below 60, your insulin doesn't function as it should. So it creates more trouble for diabetes. So definitely a good vitamin D level. Iodine, there is some deficiency of iodine in the soil. So before you start a supplement, definitely get your level checked. And you want to try to keep it in the middle of the range. If it's not, you can get an iodine liquid for that dosage, or eat some clean source seaweed in your weekly routine. But definitely get your levels checked. Brazil nut gets you a lot of selenium, and just one Brazil nut is more than enough for that. And then this is specific for your thyroid health. Iodine and selenium is good for your thyroid. So one Brazil nut a day, making sure your iodine is in a good range. If it is, you don't need a supplement. And please, please, please stay away from all this over-the-counter thyroid support supplements. The quality control is a big issue. Contaminants is a big issue. They may have actual T3 hormone in it, and I've seen people get lots of issues from that over and over again. So please stay away from all this crazy supplements. We need D3K2, we need the B12, iodine if you are deficient, Brazil nut for the selenium, and that's pretty much end of supplements. There are many different ways to detox. You want to get clean source of water. That water in the tap, the county supply unfortunately is not clean, so you do have to have a reverse osmosis or a distillation system. Sweating every day helps you detox. Drinking some completely green smoothies. No fruit. The only fruit I've written there is green apple, and that's also just a small portion. If you type Dr. Soham Patel on YouTube, and it will pull up my video on our green juice recipe. So I'm using amla, which is a very high potency vitamin C fruit, in place of the green apple in that video. But getting some of a green detox, maybe once or twice a week, can be a good way to help your body detox. We talked about fasting. Avoiding in cooking in plastic or heating things up in plastic, and also not using any non-stick, because all that non-stick most of the times has Teflon and all these chemicals. Being conscientious of what type of clothes you buy. Make sure they don't say flame resistant. Also, when you buy furniture, don't get it coated with flame retardants, because those chemicals are very bad for thyroid, and they compete with iodine uptake. And like I said earlier, grounding every day. It could be just walking bare feet in the soil in your backyard, working with your plants. But that allows all this buildup of energy that we get from exposing to Wi-Fi and phone and tablets and TV. Just because we don't see that, we don't think it is there, but it is surrounding us 24/7, and it creates negative energy for our body. So we got to ground with bare feet every day. And lastly, every week or every day, whatever you can do, but have a time where you are away from all electronic devices and media and just connect with nature. The last slide here I have is, again, we've gone through a year and a half of COVID and whatnot. But the part that I've always focused on and the part that no one seems to be talking about is your immune system. If you have a good immune system, you can really fight a lot of different things. So yes, we have different options to look at prevention, but treatment, but there are so many avenues of prevention. And the first and foremost is eating lots of fiber-rich foods, because that feeds your microbiome. And a better microbiome means a better immune system, because 80% of your immune system is around your gut. We talked about vitamin D, very important. That has been, studies show that your level of vitamin D pretty much determined whether you stayed outside the hospital or you ended up on the ICU on a ventilator. Keeping your vitamin D above 60 has been very beneficial to keep your immune system balanced and effective in fighting off, not just COVID, but many different viruses and bacteria. Another key aspect is working on building a fear-free mindset, because when you stay fearful, your immune system goes down. Your body pumps all this cortisol, which dampens your immune system. And yes, it can be a process, but listening to news 24/7 and listening to people who are trying to scare you all the time is not going to help you. So yes, stay informed, but panicking and being in the state of fear, which I can tell you frankly, many people have been even till now, is actually hurting them more than helping. And good sleep, because your body detoxes, your immune system reboots, everything happens in the sleep. So make sure you're getting good night's sleep as best as possible. Fiber-rich foods, vitamin D, fear-free mindset, and good quality sleep. With that, I'm going to end with this last slide. So in Ayurveda, they also always tell that, when the diet is wrong, the medication is of no use, and if the diet is correct, medication is of no need. And Hippocrates quoted that, the natural healing force within us is very strong. All we need is to allow it to do its job and not cloud our body and mind with more toxins and things that we don't need. So that's going to be end of my talk.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. That was an excellent and very, very informative presentation. If anybody would like to follow Dr. Patel, I do have, I think my screen is getting shared. It's he could be reached on Facebook at CFPEN, or YouTube also the same handle. And on Twitter, it's at plant_ENDO. And with that, I think we might have time for just maybe a couple of questions. So let me ask. Let's go. Somebody did ask, is there a specific time you would like us to take all the supplements that you did recommend?
So B12 is any time in the day, and because it's sublingual, you want to make sure you don't have any food or liquid 5-10 minutes around that, so it absorbs directly, and you get the most benefit. And the vitamin D should be after a bigger meal of the day, because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, so you want to make sure you get the best benefit out of it. So D after a meal, bigger meal of the day, and B12 anytime when you have 5-10 minutes of no talk, no food, no liquid.
Okay, thank you. And then somebody asked, can you be insulin resistant without being diabetic?
Yeah, because insulin resistance is actually the process that starts and it takes many years. So on average, by the time you're diagnosed to be diabetic, you could be insulin resistant for 10 to 20 years. Like I was mentioning earlier, one of the very common telltale signs is that blackening of the skin on the side of the face, which I see mostly in Indians and Hispanics. But for Caucasians, you see more on the back of the neck, elbow. Those are signs that your insulin production is way higher than what it should be. And by the time your fasting sugar starts going up, it may already be later in the process. Now, how you can get it checked is when you get labs done with your physician, make sure you ask them to check for fasting insulin level with a fasting glucose, part of the chemistry. And if your fasting glucose is below 100 and your insulin level should be less than 5, that would mean you're insulin sensitive. As your insulin level fasting starts going higher, 10, 15, 20, you're getting insulin resistant. So keeping your insulin level fasting below 5 with your glucose at the same time below 100 on the lab, that means you are insulin sensitive. As it starts going higher, you're on that journey towards insulin resistance.
I think that's all about the time that we have. Thank you, Dr. Patel, again. And I am going to be talking a little bit about our next speaker,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ashwani
And
Garg.
apologies for the
Go
slide
ahead.
mess up.
No, don't worry about it. Things happen. So, thank you. Dr. Ashwani Garg, he's a family physician in Barrington, Illinois. He was previously in solo practice for 15 years and was inspired by the movie Forks Over Knives, which, by the way, most of us have to watch, or all of us have to watch, I should say, and CNN's Last Heart Attack, to adopt a plant-based diet and to work with his patients on healthy lifestyle changes, including a whole food plant-based diet. He practices primary care medicine for all ages, and his office is currently located inside of a fitness wellness center. I've got the opportunity to meet Dr. Garg on multiple occasions, and he is the one who introduced Dr. Neil Bernard to me, and my personal journey was featured in Dr. Neil Bernard's book. So thank you, Dr. Garg, for that introduction. And I'm going to transfer the call now to Dr. Garg.
Thank you. So thank you again for the opportunity for this presentation. Very excited to talk to you, all of you. Thank you for coming. So I really appreciated Dr. Patel's talk, especially in one of those later slides where he said, to be without fear, because as I tell patients too, that fear is the biggest immune suppressant. Fear, it releases stress hormones, even can lead to high blood pressure and higher blood sugar. So such an important point. So what I will do is I will focus mostly on heart disease, but we will talk about the other diseases and how they're reversed. The good news is there's not one separate lifestyle plan for one disease or the other. It's really one plan, and we just apply it maybe slightly differently, but very few modifications. So thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, one second. Okay, so I'm certified in family medicine. I take care of all the ages. And I'm certified in plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine. And this is just a joke slide. Now, this is not really what we learn on the first day of med school. In fact, I had the opportunity to go to a medical school where in the mid-90s, we actually studied Dean Ornish's research, which was amazing. It's just somehow between the first year and the last year, it kind of got lost in the shuffle, and more pharmaceuticals and procedures came in. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about the research on prevention and reversal of heart disease, and I'm going to include some special materials from India, that many people are not aware that reversal studies are also done in India. And then mechanism of heart disease, and we'll discuss, some nutrition basics. I really appreciated Dr. Patel's presentation, so I don't need to dwell on that, but we will talk about phytonutrients and antioxidants, and then, just how to assemble healthy meals. So what we're going to do, one exercise, is we're going to just spend 34 seconds. And for those 34 seconds, we are going to just sit quietly, focus on your breathing, become aware of your breath. And so let us get started. Okay, now we're going to talk about what happened in those 34 seconds. What happened in those 34 seconds is someone had a heart attack in the United States, and we're just talking about the USA. Let me close this. Okay. So, heart disease is the most common cause of death, even today, number one, even with the pandemic, accounts for 36% of deaths annually. So we're talking over 800,000 from cardiovascular disease. And the cost is staggering, $316 billion. But that was back in 2010. It has grown so much since then. So as far as heart disease, yes, there are different kinds. We're going to discuss mainly coronary artery disease. But the good news is, even in arrhythmia, even in heart failure, you can see reversal. So in arrhythmia, for example, atrial fibrillation is a very common cause. It is helped tremendously. I've seen a couple of patients reversed with lifestyle changes, which is amazing. And then heart failure, the expert on this subject is Dr. Baxter Montgomery in Houston, who I had great privilege to meet when he came up to Chicago. So as we said, every 34 seconds, one American has a coronary event, and every 1 minute and 23, which is unfortunately decreasing. It's heart disease is increasing. An American will die of heart disease. 1/6 of deaths are related to heart disease. 620,000 will have first heart attack. 295,000 will have recurrent heart attack, and then 150,000 will have a silent heart attack without knowing it. This is the number one cause of death globally, accounting for almost 1/3 of all global deaths. Now, interestingly, there was a Dr. Dennis Burkitt who went to rural Africa and found heart disease was virtually not present. So just to put it in perspective by size, so many times we focus on the general things in the news. On the right, war, murder, unplanned events, mental health disorders, car accidents, suicide. We don't focus on the left-hand side. Now, if we put the pandemic inside this chart, it would be somewhere on the, order, perhaps just a little bit behind cancer, but still heart disease is ahead of that. So this person, actually, believe it or not, from India, inspired the studies on heart disease reversal. This is Swami Satchidananda, who inspired Dean Ornish. And Dean Ornish really tells this beautiful story about Swamiji in a talk. It's on YouTube. And he talks about how he was introduced in Texas because his sister started meditation with him. That was her guru. And he was deeply depressed. He basically saved his life and introduced him to this science of yoga and probably vegetarianism together with it. They were a Texas, Dallas family. So Dean Ornish was the first to offer documented proof that heart disease can be reversed by lifestyle. And for most of them, the chest pain disappeared. I had the privilege, and I don't know where to find it anymore, of watching, I believe it's from 1991 or 92, the episode of PBS Nova, where they followed this first cohort in reversal. and for 82%, artery clogging reversed. So as I said, this was required reading in my early year of medical school, and inspired by Swamiji. Again, he tells the story that he owes all of the credit for his work to Swamiji. So what was the Ornish plan? We are talking intensive lifestyle change. We are talking low fat. In the beginning, he did lacto-vegetarian with fat-free milk. And then it increased, it expanded to plant-based fully with aerobic exercise, stress management, smoking cessation, and psychosocial support for 5 years. Now, interestingly, he does this comprehensive approach, and that's actually shown in the NOVA episode. So there was one participant who was particularly type A personality, would outrun everyone, did the diet perfectly, but he had a very toxic relationship, attitude towards life and towards his wife. So in fact, he said, "Oh, there's no love between us." And guess what? He is the one who dropped dead in the study. They were all very shocked. That shows how important it is to incorporate stress management and love and support. And that 1-year study initially extended to 5 years. We're talking, angiograms reviewed by cardiologists. So the decrease in stenosis in the narrowing was in the experimental group, and then increase of that narrowing in the control group, which is what we think about as natural history of heart disease. Many cardiologists, even today, will tell the patient, "You know what, we will expect to see you back. Heart disease is a progressive disease. It just gets worse from here." And the number of events, which means heart attack and death, were 2.5 times more in the control group. So this is just an illustration of it, where he showed decrease in the narrowing in the treatment group versus the control group. And then how much they adhered to the plan influenced their success. So if you separate out the ones that were most adherent to the plan versus the least adherent, there you see the real difference, big difference in the diameter. So as you know, the diameter and the flow is related in an exponential pattern. So slight change in diameter means a big change in flow. So then came Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn at Cleveland Clinic, who is not a cardiologist. He's actually a general surgeon. And he showed reversal of heart disease. Now, what he wanted to do, his goal, he wanted to separate out diet from lifestyle. So he did not tell them to exercise. He did not tell them to meditate. He had no psychologist in the group. So even in that trial, he showed reversal. So what the graph on the right is showing is an artery after 3 years of this plan recovering its flow. And then on the left, what you're seeing is a perfusion scan of the heart. So on the top is previous. So the green means no flow, red means flow. And you see the donut is kind of restored on the bottom scan. This is only 3 weeks after. So what it's showing is the most important lesson. Even before the large arteries change, we are seeing change in the microscopic blood vessels that supply the heart. It's really quite amazing what happens. And, we'll talk about why. So Dr. Esselstyn's study was diet only, whole grains, lentils and beans, vegetables and fruits and flax seeds. These were highly motivated patients because they had no alternative. No oil, not olive oil, not even fish oil, nothing. And initially it was 17 and expanded to 177 patients and spanned 44 months. And again, 93% had resolution of symptoms. These were patients that were almost left for dead. Okay, just kind of the doctors gave up on them, except for Dr. Esselstyn. So 22% heart disease reversal on radiology testing, meaning restoration of the heart muscle. 27 of them were able to avoid stent and bypass, and they, generally lost weight, good significant amount. And then just to illustrate how significant these are, it's one thing to put the graphs up there, But when you talk about this gentleman, Jim, you know, that he was able to dance with his daughter on her wedding day, you know, that is really why. You know, so many patients, when you ask about motivation, you want to get the reason why they want to change, and that inspires the change. So again, we're talking cholesterol values. These are dramatic lowering. So with a statin drug, the best I can get, maybe 20-30% lowering, right? So this is talking about 50% lowering of cholesterol. And then again, you're seeing the red. The red is good. This is another view of the heart. You're supposed to see a U shape. The U shape is restored afterwards. And then another case where the donut is restored, that's a cross section. And again, your cholesterol is dropped almost in half. So the idea behind this also, there is Esselstyn, there is Ornish, but there was the Predimed study that was done in Spain, Prevención con Dieta Mediterránea. That's why it's called Predimed. Now, the data was reanalyzed in a different fashion later on of Predimed because it's a very large database. And what they found is on the right side, for example, you have separated out the ones who are most plant-based from the ones who are least plant-based. And interestingly, the ones who are most plant-based did have the best outcome with the cardiovascular disease endpoints with a very significant reduction. So the green line versus the red line. And then I want to show you this trial from Mount Abu, India. This is the lead author is Satish Gupta. So you can view his lectures on YouTube. And the most interesting thing he says is heart disease is, get this, psychosomatic illness. And I'll explain why. So they put so much emphasis on yoga and meditation, but you might think, oh, what does that really mean? But they actually showed angiographic reversal, just like Ornish did. It's just they changed the emphasis. So this was, again, low-fat, high-fiber diet, vegetarian, moderate exercise, and stress management. But the stress management really emphasized Raja Yoga. Whereas in Dean Ornish's case, what he wanted to do is he wanted to translate it to something that, American audience would understand. So this was published in 2011 in the Indian Heart Journal, and HLS stands for Healthy and Happy Lifestyle Program. And they had 123 patients, so very significant number, low fat, high fiber, moderate exercise, and stress management. And how they framed it is heal, die, healthy as in heal, die, and swasth means swa-ast, inner self-consciousness through Raja Yoga. And then instead of, talking about incurable, they talk about incurable, as in curable through your inner strength. So it's a lot of self-discovery and self, efficacy. It's 7-day residential, followed up 6 months later with a seminar, and then 2 years later, they did repeat angiography. So 91%, they kind of trended towards regression, not statistically significant, but a good trend. And, 51% of the lesions, if you add them all up, they showed more than 10% regression. And what they say so inspiring is health is a harmonious interplay of spiritual, mental, and physical energy. So what they're doing is they're just going to the root. So many people, why do they eat unhealthfully? Because they don't have that self-awareness, right? When you gain that self-awareness through meditation, many people want to take care of themselves. Like, for example, right? If you have a dog, you wouldn't feed it some of the things you would feed yourself, right? Because you want the dog to be healthy. If you have a child, you know what? You'll save maybe the best fruits, the best vegetables for that child when they're growing up, like 2-3 years old, when you can control everything. But then you wouldn't give that child similar food to yourself if it's unhealthy. So just if you want to know more, these are the yamas and niyamas of yoga. And that's, again, a different talk that, I would suggest you study those. Then if you go to brahmakumaris.org website, they will talk about just general principles. On YouTube, you can view a lot of videos, and it really changes the outlook. They do have most videos in Hindi. There are many videos in English that they've done in Australia and other parts of the world. So, oh, and then of course the Eightfold Path of Buddhism also studied, but many people, in the Western world find that kind of path through Buddhism. So as far as heart disease, no other diet, nothing has been shown to reverse heart disease. Not the Mediterranean, believe it or not. In Prediabetes, they did not show a statistically significant result. Not low carb, not the standard AHI or DASH diet. DASH diet was for hypertension, but not heart disease. Whole food plant-based is the only one, hands down, that was proven to reverse heart disease. So just, we are going to talk about the process. Atherosclerosis is a gradual process that eventually leads to heart attack and heart disease, meaning hardening of the arteries. It starts in the young age, and then, they have a new term, primordial prevention. So you've heard of primary prevention, preventing the disease. Secondary means preventing death once you have the disease. Primordial begins in the infancy and even before, right? In the womb, what mother's diet is programs them. And we saw this, I believe it's National Geographic video. They took and filmed the baby in the womb. And what they filmed was the baby kind of tasting the food from the amniotic fluid. It was really fascinating. And then thrombosis. Thrombosis is why people have sudden cardiac death, sudden heart attack. I have, 3 late friends who passed suddenly from heart attack, sudden cardiac death. What happens is the blood clots suddenly, then you lack the blood flow. That part of the heart dies and then forms an abnormal rhythm that just stops the whole heart. One was roughly 47, intensive care director at one of the hospitals. One was roughly 52, husband of a doctor I know, and one was roughly 63. Just all taken too soon. Guess what they all had in common? All men, all South Asian. So South Asians specifically have particularly high risk, and also tend to carry a gene mutation called LP(a). So this thrombosis is a process. It involves inflammation, deficiency of nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessel. What you can do to increase is vegetables, and especially leafy greens, decreased elasticity, and then inflammation. And interestingly, the endothelium is one cell layer thick, and if it gets disrupted, it can cause sudden blood clot and death. So very interestingly, the thrombosis is actually more dangerous when it happens on the artery on the left, which is nice and open. The artery on the right has over time just closed and closed and closed. And what the body's done is it's kind of compensated, maybe redirecting the blood through other channels. So EPC you should know about. Endothelial progenitor cells are formed on the bone marrow. And what they do, it's showing it going from the bone marrow straight into that endothelium and replacing the damaged cells. This has been shown to be increased by Okinawan vegetables, which, again, there's the Okinawan sweet potato and other vegetables that they typically eat. This is just a particular study, but you can increase it with American vegetables too. Especially the leafy greens. And that's how the healing occurs that we showed in those stress test images. This is a new marker. It's called TMAO. It's a new marker of vascular disease that shows what happens in our guts can influence what happens in our arteries. And, there's a whole process, but generally eating fatty foods from animal products like eggs and cheese and meat and dairy products ends up in a pathway laying down atherosclerosis eventually. It's a marker that's been shown to be associated. So Indian vegetarians actually eat the same amount of fat as Indian non-vegetarians. An Indian vegetarian will end up making up for all that meat that a non-vegetarian eats with high-fat dairy products and oils. So that's why you don't see a big difference in heart disease from typical Indian vegetarians versus non-vegetarians. So the process that we want to focus on is chronic inflammation. It is related to all these diseases and all these systems: cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disease, metabolic disorders, bone and joint problems, lung disease. So that's why we see, and Dr. Patel talked about diabetic disease, neurologic disease. There's a Dr. and Mrs. Shirzai who talk about this a lot. So the good thing is, in the plant-based world, you have different doctors focusing on different diseases. Dr. Brooke Goldner, for example, autoimmune disease. Now, guess what? She also gave a talk on COVID and long COVID, because you know what? It also is related to chronic inflammation, platelet aggregation, endothelial dysfunction from the spike protein. So just to show you, yes, there is research on plant-based diets and COVID-19. There are now 2 studies. This was one study called a case control study published in British Medical Journal. And you can find this reported on various websites. And it's being passed around globally, but somehow amongst the medical community, there is a lot of skepticism, believe it or not, about this study. They criticize it. They say, well, it wasn't large enough, there wasn't this or that. But in the end, the shocking result is that over 2/3 reduction in hospitalization and death. That's what to know. And it has been corroborated by another study. So bottom line, the doctor is inside you. This is very damaging to my profession for people to know, but each patient carries his own doctor inside of him or her. So the old nutrition paradigm focuses on vitamins and supplements. That's what I learned in medical school, which leads to poor health outcomes. You don't improve anything. So what I say, it's just rearranging deck chairs on a sinking ship. It's not going to help. And the trouble is that people just put supplements on top of a poor diet. So as Dr. Patel mentioned, processed food is just overabundance in American diet. And also Indian diet, all of those snacks, the teas, the snacks, right? All those things that people munch on are very damaging. And then animal food, remember, milk and dairy is liquid meat, as Dr. McDougall calls it. Plant foods are very little. And of those plant foods, half are highly processed plant foods. Fiber is found only in plant foods. So if someone, doesn't want to be completely that way, they can adopt maybe 80% and flip the script of this chart. And it would be great if they could reduce their processed food, animal food to under 12%. The only problem is what Doug Lisle calls pleasure trap, in that those foods eventually become the majority again. So why we propose plant-based? It is easy. It is very easy. Yes, absolutely, Dr. Paidushetty, that South Asians definitely are shown to have narrower arteries, but there's some little bit disagreement that is it because of narrow arteries or is it because of more atherosclerosis? But yes, absolutely, dairy products are, white poison, liquid meat, and absolutely should be taken off the plate, as well as oil. So the problem is, what happens in the grocery store? You have all this processed food, aisles and aisles and aisles of it. Then you have all these digestive supplements, fiber, antacids. They're even starting with your babies, giving them processed food in that middle panel. And then more and more supplements, and people think that that will make them healthy, right? Produce section should be the majority. So the new paradigm is holism, that, these foods act synergistically. They interact with each other. And you know what? Brown rice is not a carb. Avocado is not a fat. Fruit is not sugar. So we need to look at the whole food and its whole components instead. And just remember, these foods don't have labels. They might have a label of their company, but that's about it. You don't have to. And nutrition is like a symphony. Each food component acts together with the other. So whole food plant-based diet means whole food plant-based, minimizing refined foods. A lot of factors affect the nutrients at the end. And just to show you a comparison, plant-based is more than adequate on all the nutrients, even protein, and it is the only food that has fiber content. Animal foods do not. So along with the fiber is mixed in all the phytonutrients and antioxidants. This is from China study, this chart. So this is the visit to Washington, D.C. National Zoo. This guy on the left was just eating his greens all day. Every day, no one asked about his protein because massive size, right? And so the protein requirements, again, you can calculate it, but what I'm saying is don't even worry about the slide. Balanced plant-based diet with adequate calories will always contain enough protein, and I stand behind that. No one has to calculate. If there's an athlete that needs double the calories, guess what? They'll get double the protein, and it takes care of itself. Animal protein is dirty fuel, leads to all diseases, which includes dairy. Plant proteins are the clean fuel, the best fuel for your body. They are the ones that are anti-inflammatory, removes the the oxidative stress. And we talked a little bit about autoimmune disease, that autoimmune disease also comes because the body starts attacking itself. And we think it's because of the animal proteins that are leaking out from damaged gut and causing the body to form an immune response to itself. So these are the ones that give energy, that give vitality. And we have human eyes to see color for this reason, because we are trained to see the different bright colors and to find them pleasing to us. Carnivore animals don't see color. They don't need to. So phytochemicals don't have a daily reference intake. There's no label that says, but they are essential to life. Only 1/5 of Americans meet the minimum intake. And then flavonoid, just to go over some of them, again, I'll just run through them quickly. Flavonoids, antioxidant, antiplatelet, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. So they can be found in leafy greens, citrus, healthy teas, and even herbal teas like rooibos. Rooibos tea is the best substitute for the Indian chai. And as far as the Indian snacks that someone asked about, sure, there are ways to veganize them, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily healthy. But of course, they can be treats. And I can attest to that because my sister's wedding was in Buena Park, California at the Jain Temple. It is absolutely imperative that everything brought in be vegan. So even the Vedic priest used olive oil in the ceremony. That's a very good use of olive oil, by the way. And it smelled amazing too. So carotenoids, these are the ones that reduce the muscle fatigue, reduce the risk of prostate cancer, and all cancers, I would say, found in carrots and fruits, vegetables, tomatoes. They also provide a bit of a sunscreen and protection for the skin from acne and other diseases. And then we talk about non-starchy polysaccharides. They help in preventing cancer, helping brain development. Then we have lignans. This, I think, should be essential. Lignans in the flax seeds should be essential. They help regulate hormones. They are provided as a phytoestrogen, which are beneficial even with breast cancer genes. And then glucosinolates, these are the sulfur-containing compounds. This is why sometimes if you overcook these vegetables, they can be a little bit smelly. But the key is just to cook them lightly. Great recipe, Madhuri, for the chai. So isoflavones, these, in my humble opinion, are really essential to plant-based diet. The problem is these anti-soy people did a very bad disservice, because what happened is people got afraid of soy and said, okay, we'll just have dairy. But guess what? Dairy has all the cow estrogens, xenoestrogens they call it. And then omega-3. So omega-3, in my humble opinion, should come from flax, chia, plant foods. And the key is curcumin, which is turmeric, absolutely increases absorption of brain DHA. And it will help. It will make up. There's no research showing that vegans need to consume fish or even DHA supplements. So these slides are from eattobeat.com. Let me just make sure, eattobeat.com, which is Dr. William Lee of the Angiogenesis Foundation. I can't remember if it's org or com, but anyway, these are the foods that were shown to help in cancer in the Petri dish. They dripped components on top of the cancer cells. These were shown to benefit that. So fruits, then you have vegetables, all the colorful ones, legumes, nuts, and beans. There's a database there if you register for free that you can view all the compounds. So I want to just point out black rice, which is really amazing. It's also called forbidden rice. It is, definitely much more expensive, but a little bit of black rice can be mixed into brown rice, and it absolutely is very high in antioxidants, like a green tea would be. And then herbs and spices, these are medicinal. So, people make chutneys that are used in Indian cooking, Indian meals. And then sometimes you can just chop up these herbs and put it on top of your food. So is eating plants only healthy? Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics says, in brief, yes, not only is it healthy, but may be superior in prevent diseases and treat diseases. So interestingly, they actually mentioned prevention and treatment. Somehow that was missed, published a while ago. And then just this is an example. If people need food pyramid, sure, that's great. But overthinking it is not necessary. But the key is the high-fat foods are at the top, meaning they shouldn't have a large proportion of the diet because of insulin resistance that Dr. Patel talked about. And then nutrient density, is Dr. Patel may have mentioned, that's how you can be full, is by whole plant foods. And yeah, this is just showing you that animal foods and refined foods are very calorie dense, whereas vegetables, we're talking 100 calories per pound. That's like nothing. So, and lastly, just a little bit about mindful eating, that in Ayurveda, it is also thought that if you honor your food and you eat mindfully, that you'll incorporate the nutrients better into your body. So yeah, when I say plant-based, I really mean plants only, just to be clear. So yeah, other lifestyle factors. So Dr. David Katz mentions feet, forks, fingers, sleep, stress, and love. And as far as the love, it is definitely emphasized in Dean Ornish's work. And then these are just a few resources that, I can definitely share them on the Facebook page of PBNM. There's many, many more. And hopefully, if you can go after this whole seminar to PBNM's Facebook page and just share helpful resources you have found useful that are whole food, plant-based Indian resources and videos. So this slide is, I'm so happy I got to participate, is at Venkata Vedam's house, Venkata and Sharmila's house, that, I got to meet Srinivas, their friend, who, believe it or not, he helped, the family helped him to reverse his heart disease. So this is a real example. This is the set of the producers of Eating You Alive are in the process. It's a long process of producing a movie for the Indian audience. And what I did was I pasted the link to the brief video just to intro to this movie. So this is, again, wisdom. The human body heals itself. Nutrition provides the resources to accomplish the task. And that, Albert Einstein, very smart gentleman. These are my kids at the Einstein, at the National Academy of Sciences. Nothing will benefit human health and increase the chance for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet. I can't say 100% whether he said these words, but they are commonly attributed to him. And, at one point, he was offered beefsteak at a conference, and he said, "No, thank you. That's lion's food. I won't eat that." So thank you, everyone. So yeah, I would love to take a few questions, and if you know what, if I can just have them distilled down to maybe the most salient few, that'd be great.
Thank you, Dr. Garg, for a wonderful presentation. I learned quite a few things.
Thank you.
And some of the tips that you shared. I do have, how maybe we'll take like 3 or 4 questions. Let me just summarize them.
Sure.
Somebody did ask, can you please address the role of probiotic foods, especially probiotic dairy foods such as kefir and yogurt?
Right. Yeah, the great news is I just learned last week how to make the best yogurt from plants. So in my case, what I did was I soaked the cashews and mixed some soy milk. So to get the best mix of protein and fat in a healthy way. And I just used a probiotic capsule, opened it up and made it just like Desi yogurt. It was so thick. We even made curry from it. And if anyone likes curry, you'll know how amazing it is to have that warm curry. So I do suggest it because it may not be necessarily the bacteria itself.
Dr. Garg, I think we couldn't hear you clearly.
Okay. Most amazing yogurt from cashew and soy milk. So yes, I do suggest it. For popular in UP and Punjab, and have you heard of that kanji, which use beetroot and carrots?
Sorry, Dr. Garg, I think you might have to repeat yourself. We did lose you briefly.
Okay, sure. You know what? Okay. So I was saying the Indian probiotic beverage is called kanji in UP and Punjab.
Yes. It's
and
commonly
it's made from beetroot
drunk.
and carrot.
Yes.
What? Yeah.
I said it is a common drink in the northern parts of India.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's kimchi, there's sauerkraut, there's the probiotic yogurts you can make from oats. I've done all of those, and it's great. Yeah, and your particular yogurt is amazing, the almond one.
Yes, and even you can prepare basic soya yogurt, using soya milk that's available at the store. The West Soy brand is usually the one that I have had the best success with. Even the Trader Joe's brand is pretty good too.
That's great. Trader Joe's shelf-stable without additives. Yeah,
that is correct. Let me go to the next question. Somebody did ask, is it possible to quantify how much of soluble and insoluble fiber intake I should take to reverse the atherosclerotic plaque I might have accumulated before I went vegan?
Sure. Yeah. So what I like to say is, you know what? The details take care of themselves. Don't even worry about, so I showed the pyramids. Don't even worry about the details. They will take care of themselves. So if you just think of the 4 food groups mainly, is whole grains, lentils and beans, fruits and vegetables. That's really all you need to know. And each meal should incorporate reversal and weight loss. They would incorporate more of the raw foods. So we know about the Venkata Vedam method, right, Sharmila? That you do, so the greens are at the bottom, then you put the legumes on top, and then you might put your yogurt on top of that. So that's one way to improve your insoluble fiber intake. Soluble fiber is in whole grains like brown rice and oats. But I would say just have, whatever you want to eat, and don't worry about the exact numbers or details. No protein counting, no carb counting, none of that. But generally, okay, if you want a rule of thumb, the results happen from 40 to 80 grams of fiber per day, which is double of the USDA's requirement.
And legumes have fiber, the plants have fiber, so you don't need to consciously put an effort to look for fiber rich foods.
Right.
So
Yeah, USDA guidelines say make half your grains whole. I say make all of them whole.
So, this question is a pretty common question. We get this a lot. Any ways to reduce gas from eating beans?
Oh yeah, so but according to the Esselstyn family, this is their advice. Let her rip. That's what they say. They say don't worry about it. But okay,
Okay.
there is alpha glucosidase, which absolutely helps. Alpha glucosidase is available as Beanzyme, Beanzyme. It's available online. And then for some people, probiotic foods do help.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Garg, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I have to move on to Sid and Nidhi's presentation after this.
Looking forward.
So thank you once again for your time. Uh, I'm going to move on to our next presenters. They are husband and wife. They're also based out of Chicagoland. They are Sid and Nidhi Bansal. They are high school sweethearts, got married and moved to Chicago area in 2001. Sid had a long history of weight issues and tried multiple diet plans like low carbs, high protein, etc. In 2007, Dr. Ashwani Garg, their primary physician, recommended they watch Forks Over Knives. As I said, everybody has to watch that movie. On Netflix, Nidhi started experimenting in the kitchen to convert some of their most favorite dishes, and in 2018, both fully committed to going whole food plant-based, no oil lifestyle. Their kitchen is a lab and continues to be after 3.5 years of following this lifestyle. Nidhi started documenting all her recipes on her website, www.plantbasedindianliving.com, and their kids also have fully transitioned to this lifestyle. So without any further delay, let's move on to Nidhi and Sid Bansal.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So it's very hard to follow Dr. Garg and Dr. Patel, and thank you, Sharmila, for the amazing intro.
No,
So yeah, so what we thought would be beneficial is walk through our journey, which you captured very well in the summary, with some detail, and then followed by that, we'll have Nidhi kind of do a quick cooking demo for the hardest part. How do you saute?
That's always the toughest question I always been asked, like how do you saute, because that is the first step in Indian cooking. So I'll walk you through that.
And will you be using oil and ghee or anything like that?
Water is my oil.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So let's quickly walk through our quick story. All right, so this is us, and this is what I look like back in the day. Again, as Sharmila said, having weight issues all my life, moved to US in about 1998 for education, and then got Nidhi along in 2001, and that was the best decision. But always been active, but not a healthy eater. Again, as the China study says, it's always the environment, the culture that really influences you, your diet and your lifestyle. So definitely coming to the US didn't help with that. So we had to kind of do a few things on our own. And that with a family history, again, going back to the environment, my dad has diabetes, has, as Dr. Garg was saying, right, losing a patient to plant-based. Our parents have been the perfect customers, patients to doctors. My mom recently got diagnosed with diabetes. Nidhi's parents, her father passed away in 2013 due to heart and kidney failure at a very young age. And then her mother has the hyperthyroid currently.
My father also had diabetes too.
Yeah.
Not to mention, yeah.
So in 2003, I had a wake-up call. I clocked at about 380 pounds and then walked into a doctor for some esophagus problems. And I was basically told I was a walking time bomb based on all the blood tests and everything that went around. I didn't really understand at that point, but then walked away with just Nexium as a prescription. And that fixed the problem at the time, but that was definitely a wake-up call. Solution, right? We always look for those low carb, high protein diets. Yes, I got some success, But then, as you can see, I went through 2 streams of weight loss following that low carb, avoid the whites, no sugar, nothing like that. And yes, I did get some success, but again, I did not find something that was sustainable, that I could do on a daily basis. It became socially awkward and really was not sustainable over time. Then came along Dr. Garg. By the way, he is the only doctor I've seen who does not prescribe any medicine. He prescribes food. So something to walk away from. He did walk us, tell us, okay, you should look at the whole food, plant-based, no oil lifestyle. That was the first introduction. We like, okay, we listened to the doctor. I don't know what he's talking about. But then in 2017, again, a visit, a regular checkup, he said, oh, go watch Walks Over Knives. Again, as Sharmila said, everybody has to watch that. Another movie is The Game Changer on Netflix, another watch. So in 2018, we completely flipped in about January timeframe, where we started looking at plant-based. Again, thanks to Nidhi, she started experimenting. As a result of that, Nidhi went to the certification process, with the eCornland University. We got certified with the wholefoodplantbased.org. And now Nidhi is actually pursuing her master's in nutrition at the Arizona State University. So she's really passionate and following her passion to helping others. As a success, we saw a glimpse on the left. We also had the fortune of kind of getting published in the Folks Over Knives twice, and a lot of mentions online. It has been a great journey. Again, the journey has not stopped. As Sharmila said, our kitchen is a perfect lab where we experiment. I would love to try gulab jamun or other things that some viewers asked for, because we want to try and see, what, not to negotiate with food, but keeping the life on. So at the end, before we transition to Nidhi, some of the challenges were, again, being Indian, being from India, a lot of social pressure. What will anybody else think if I don't eat dairy, don't eat oil? We have to take care of ourselves. The second thing is substitution. There is always a substitution for something. You just need to search it. Dairy, it took us a while to come down to oat milk to make chai on a daily basis. Oat milk, basically, that was it. And then Nidhi is going to show you on how water replaced the oil and ghee and other components in our daily lives. Cooking techniques, buying an air fryer to crisp certain pakoras. Yes, we do eat pakoras. We do eat chaats and, papdi chaat and everything.
Samosa
Again,
chaat, papdi chaat, everything.
Everything. So you don't have to negotiate on what you eat. Life must go on. We're still enjoying it. We're still eating out, meeting friends. Again, as I say, it's not a race. It's a marathon. We just have to keep going slowly throughout the process.
And we just need to love ourselves. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Nidhi, now we're going to transition to you,
Sure.
and you're going to show us on how we are going to make some rajma.
So I just turned on my Instapot. Let's get warmed up. I always check the heat with my hand on the top of it. I think it's like I learned this from my mom. So once the Instapot is a little heated up, I'm going to put some cumin seeds. This is my small spice, I would say, box. It's very common in India. We call it basal dani. And I keep all my spices handy because I think I use them daily, every day. I cannot cook any Indian food without this. So I think my Instapot is about to be ready in a few seconds. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you that I have chopped some onions for my rajma. Here are the onions, white onions. We can use red onions, whatever is handy. I had white onions ready today. Then I minced garlic and some ginger. And then I chopped some tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, or any kind of tomatoes you have handy. So these are just the basic ingredients which we use in our cooking every day. And sauteing is always the toughest and the questionable part because we saute onion and everybody thinks that we cannot saute without oil or ghee or butter. So I think my Instapot is kind of ready. I'm gonna use around half teaspoon of cumin and I'm gonna let it roast. And cumin has a very good aroma. So once it starts turning brown, you can feel the aroma is coming. And I will ask my cameraman, who is Sid today, to show you closely. So it's like, it will take a couple of seconds, but it will, yeah. I love cumin. It just enhances the flavors. So now my cumin is ready. I'm gonna add white onions. You hear the sizzle. So once I put onions, I keep sauteing. And you know, the best part about cooking without oil is that my utensils don't burn and it's very easy to clean. I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm just waiting for the onions to get translucent. See how quickly they are like sauteing without even sticking to the pan. Because I think it has like water, which helps me not to stick. So it's going pretty well. And if your food is sticking, use 1 or 2 tablespoons of water. It always helps. And the best part is your food tastes yum without even adding ghee, oil, and butter. I was very much worried that my kids won't adapt because they are not used to eating like that, but my kids don't even feel any difference. They just eat roti. I make stuffed parathas without oil, all type of dal with tadka, mutter and tofu, many things. So now I'm gonna add some garlic and ginger. It's amazing. My kitchen is like full of aromas of these amazing vegetables. It doesn't take much time. But the food tastes good. And I call it guilt-free food. I can eat as much as I want without feeling bloated, gassy, or any kind of problem. And it's like, I don't think so. I think I've tried mostly everything, but I really want to try gulab jamun because they were used to be my favorite, and I think I need to work on that. So I think I'm gonna make gulab jamun next. That's my thing now. I need to work on that. I need to find all the substitutes and make gulab jamun. Yeah. I try to make several types of halwas, which I just love it. And so trying different things. I tried even making pickles because I think my meal is not complete without pickles. I also boiled some kidney beans beforehand because this will make the process a little faster. So these are boiled kidney beans. You can have canned kidney beans. You can just boil it at home, or you can just directly put kidney beans after rinsing them in your Instapot for around like 10 minutes and your dish will be ready. So it won't take much time. So now my onions are translucent and garlic and ginger are also kind of cooked nicely. So now I think I'm going to add some tomatoes. Tomatoes have a lot of water. See, I didn't even use water yet. Isn't it amazing? Because I think tomatoes has just enough water, and so I think it's great. So now I'm going to use some salt. I'm not going to use much salt, as we all have different preference of salt. But after adding salt, tomato and onion releases more water, and the tomato gets softened really quickly. So it's pretty easy. Now they are like getting soft, and you can see like tomatoes and onions, they all mix together pretty well. It's like I make tofu and peas like this, and to make it more creamy, I add cashew sauce, which makes such a creamy flavor. It looks like shahi tofu and peas. Like, in Indian restaurants, we always find this shahi paneer with like creamier version of paneer. So now I'm gonna add some turmeric. We call it haldi in Hindi. I'm gonna put some turmeric. I love turmeric. I'm gonna add some red chili powder, and I love to grind my own spices at home. I just enjoy that way. I don't know why, but I like it. Some garam masala. And I love to add some coriander powder in my rajma. I always do that. So I'm going to mix all of these. And it's cooking pretty well. And I think 5 minutes, my gravy for rajma will be ready. And I prepared already a dish to show you guys how it will look, because it will take around like 2-3 minutes for all the spices to blend in. And I think it's my gravy is kind of ready. And after I put rajma in this, I will let it cook for another 5 to 7 minutes. So rajma absorbs all the flavors and all the spices from the gravy. And I love to eat rajma with brown rice, whole wheat naan, or I can just eat it like that. So it's amazing. See, I don't even add any water, and it's not even sticking. And my gravy for rajma is almost ready. Isn't it amazing? Power of water. And food tastes great. And nobody can even tell difference that it is cooked without oil or without ghee. And it tastes great. So now I'm going to show you what I've prepared the same way. So I made these kidney beans without anything add on. And it tastes great. So now I'm going to add this boiled rajma. And this is ready. Thank you so much all for your time. I hope you enjoy cooking. Thank you so much again.
All right. So that was great. I'm hungry. Who else? So I think, Sharmila, that was it, unless there were any questions that we can address.
Let me check. Everybody is saying you guys have all a very inspirational and amazing story. So kudos for you guys for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Thank you.
Looks like not much, just more people praising your guys, inspirational story and things like that. So Thank you very much, Sid and Nidhi.
Thank
Really
you so
appreciate your
much.
time and
Thank you.
effort for taking the time to share your personal journey with all of us.
Thank you.
Just a couple of points based on the comments that I did see. Uh, I think somebody did ask, how do you convince your family members? You just have to lead by example. You need to ask them what is their real why. Do they want to spend the rest of their life taking pills and being happy that way, or not taking pills and still leading a very healthy lifestyle? And if their why is not taking pills, then do show them the way, the whole food plant-based way of eating. uh, do cooking demos, show them that it is possible. And for the people who, somebody did ask about gulab jamuns and rasgullas. Yes, it is 100% doable. I have prepared it. It's not whole food, but it's vegan. The non-whole food part of the gulab jamun or the rasgullas is the sugar. So but it's 100%, you can make it 100% veganized and still be able to enjoy it. But if you're trying to reverse chronic illness, like my husband said, you should be avoiding all those non-whole food plant-based meals and treats. But that is it. So let me just take one final minute to just check if there are any more questions. Somebody did ask, have you made chuda without oil? Yes, you can bake it. Just put all the ingredients, with all the masalas. You can just put it in a aluminum tray or something, and then at a very low heat, bake it, and then keep tossing it. Nidhi, I don't know if you have any other tips.
It's like, we all love to snack all the time. I would suggest, like, in the morning, I cut like huge platter of fruits and I leave it on my countertop. So if anybody is hungry, they just take 1 or 2 pieces of like watermelon, cantaloupe, and in that way, kids are getting their fruits. I'm getting their fruits, and we are not trying to focus on eating junk food. And then, like, if I'm really hungry, you know what? I just cut potato, put some salt, some sriracha powder, and put it in the oven. So these small changes, tips, and tricks are always very helpful. I keep a batch of hummus. I always chop, like on weekends, I chop some vegetables, and I just like use it as a dip, hummus. So yeah.
And I have one more tip. Somebody asked us recently, like a month back, have we lost any friends in the process of our transition? And I tell them I haven't lost even a friend of mine in the last 26 years that I have made all these friends. The reason being is when we get invited to parties, unfortunately or fortunately, Indian parties, the main focus is food. We always have more food than the number of attendees at the party. So I always tell them, I am going to get my dish, my entree for my family. You don't need to worry about them. I'm coming there for the company. So that sort of relieves their worry about, oh, what do I cook for the Vedams? I'm not sure if I can make anything oil-free. I have never cooked. And when we attend banquet style functions, we always tell them not to cater for us. We always go there, either we have eaten dinner at home or we just take something small and then just go there and enjoy with the rest of them. So this way, they don't feel pressurized to cook something for us. And this is just a simple tip at our end, and that has worked for us. My kids, they go for birthday parties. Of course, they're not young kids anymore, but when they were younger, they would take all their food from home and still enjoy their sleepovers or, birthday parties and things like that. So there shouldn't be any excuses. You can have reasons, but no excuses to follow this lifestyle. That's my,
Absolutely.
view on this.
I agree with you.
So sadly, we have come to the end of our presentation. Meryl, do we have a couple of more minutes or Meryl? Okay. So we have come to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Patel, Dr. Garg, Nidhi, Sid, Really appreciate all your time and effort in sharing your stories, educating us. Hopefully, few of us who haven't switched or still sitting on the fence will make the switch, and it'll help our bodies heal, it'll help the environment, and it'll help everybody in complete sense. And if you like this presentation and you would like to support our cause, you can always do that at pbnm.org/donate, or you could Zelle Judy at pbnm.org, and we'll really appreciate all the donations if anybody could donate. So it'll help us spread the word about whole food, plant-based, no oil lifestyle, and help others too. So thank you once again for everybody for attending this wonderful presentation, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good weekend and enjoy. Eat plants, be strong, be healthy.